Hello everyone, welcome back to Joan of Arc. Well, members, hello. We are now at the Inquisitors at their wits' end. The court rested a day, then took up work again on Saturday, the 3rd of March. This was one of our stormiest sessions. The whole court was out of patience, and with good reason. These 80 distinguished churchmen, illustrious tacticians, veteran legal gladiators, had left important posts where their supervision was needed, to journey hither from various regions and accomplish a most simple and easy matter: condemn and send to death a country lass of 19, who could neither read nor write, knew nothing of the wiles and perplexities of legal procedure, could not call a single witness in her defence, was allowed no advocate or adviser, and must conduct her case by herself against a hostile judge and a packed jury. In 2 hours she would be hopelessly entangled, routed, defeated, convicted. Nothing could be more certain than this, so they thought. But it was a mistake. The 2 hours had strung out into days. What promised to be a skirmish and expanded into a siege. The thing which had looked so easy had proven to be surprisingly difficult. The light victim, who was to have been puffed away like a feather, let's say, remained planted like a rock. And, on top of all this, if anybody had a right to laugh, it was the country lass, and not the court. She was not doing that, for that was not her spirit. But others were doing it. The whole town was laughing in its sleeve, and the court knew it, and its dignity was deeply hurt. The members could not hide their annoyance, and so, as I have said, the session was stormy. It was easy to see these men had made up their minds to force words from Joan today, which should shorten up her case and bring it to a prompt conclusion. It shows that after all their experience with her, they did not know her yet. They went into battle with energy. They did not leave the question to a particular member. Nobody, no. Everybody, actually. Everybody helped. They volleyed questions at Joan from all over the house. And sometimes so many were talking at once that she had to ask them to deliver their fire one at a time, and not by platoons. The beginning was, as usual, "You are once more required to take the oath, pure and simple." I will answer to what is in the process verbal. When I do more, I will choose the occasion for myself. That old grant was debated and fought over inch by inch with great bitterness and many threats, but Joan remained steadfast, and the questionings had to shift to other matters. Half an hour was spent over Joan's apparitions, their dress, hair, general appearance, so on, in the hope of fishing something that was damaging, sought out of the replies, but, they had no results, again. Next, the male attire was reverted to, of course. After many well-worn questions had been re-asked, 1 or 2 new ones were put forward. Did not the king or queen sometimes ask you to quit the male dress? That is not in your process. Do you think you would have sinned if you had taken the dress of your sex? I have done best to serve and obey my sovereign lord and master. After a while, the matter of Joan's standard was taken up, in the hope of connecting magic and witchcraft with it. Did not your men copy your banner in their pennons? The lances of my guard did it. It was to distinguish them from the rest of the forces. It was their own idea. Actually, it's a very good idea. Were they often renewed? Yes. When the lances were broken, they were renewed. The purpose of that question unveils itself in the next one. Did you not say to your men that pennons made like your banner would be lucky? The soldier spirit in Joan was offended at this puerility. She drew herself up and said with dignity and fire, "What I said to them was, ride those English down, and I did it myself." When she flung out a scornful speech like that at these French menials in English livery, it lashed them into a rage, and that is what happened this time. There were 10, 20, sometimes even 30 of them on their feet at a time, storming at the prisoner, minute after minute, but Joan was not disturbed. By and by there was peace, and the inquiry was resumed. It was now sought to turn against Joan and the 1,000 loving honours which had been done her when she was raising France out of the dirt and shame of the century of slavery and castigation. Did you not cause paintings and images of yourself to be made? No. At Arras, I saw painting of myself kneeling in armour before the king and delivering a letter, but I caused no such things to be made. Were not masses and prayers said in your honour? If it was done, it was not by my command, but if anyone prayed for me, I think it was no harm. Did the French people believe you were sent of God? As to that, I know not, but whether they believed it or not, I was not the less sent of God. If they thought you were sent of God, do you think it was well thought? If they believed it, their trust was not abused? What impulse was it? Think, you, that moved the people to kiss your hands, your feet, and your vestments? They were glad to see me, and so they did those things, and I could not have prevented them if I had the heart. Those poor people came lovingly to me because I had not done them any hurt, but had done the best I could for them according to my strength. See what modest little words she uses to describe that touching spectacle. Her marches about France wallowed on both sides by the adoring multitudes. They were glad to see me. Glad? Why, they were transported to joy to see her. When they could not kiss her hands or her feet, they knelt in the mire and kissed her hoof-prints of her horse. Yes, they worshipped her, and that is what these priests were trying to prove. It was nothing to them that she was not to blame for what other people did. No, she was worshipped. It was enough. She was guilty of mortal sin. Curious logic, one must say. Did you not stand sponsor for some children baptized at Reims? At Troyes I did, and at St. Denis, and I named the boys Charles in honour of the king, and the girls I named Joan. Did not women touch their rings to those which you wore? Yes, many did, but I did not know their reason for it. At Reims was your standard carried into the church? Did you stand at the altar with it in hand at the coronation? Yes. In passing through the country, did you confess yourself in the churches and receive the sacrament? Yes. In the dress of a man? Yes. But I do not remember that I was in armour. It was almost a concession, almost a half-surrender of the permission granted her by the church at Poitiers to dress as a man. The wily court shifted to another matter. To pursue this one at the time might call Joan's attention to a small mistake, and by her native cleverness she might recover her lost ground. The tempestuous session had worn her and drowsed her alertness. It is reported that you brought a dead child to life in the church at Lagny. Was that in answer to your prayers? As to that, I have no knowledge. Other young girls were praying for the child, and I joined them and prayed also, doing no more than they. Continue. While we prayed, it came to life and cried. It had been dead 3 days, and was as black as my doublet. It was straightway baptized, then it passed from life again and was buried in holy ground. Why did you jump from the tower of Bourville by night and try to escape? I would go to the secure of Compiègne. It was insinuated that this was an attempt to commit the deep crime of suicide to avoid falling into the hands of the English. Did you not say that you would rather die than be delivered into the power of the English? Joan answered frankly, without perceiving the trap. Yes, my words were that I would rather that my soul be returned unto God than that I should fall into the hands of the English. It was now insinuated that when she came to, after jumping from the tower, she was angry and blasphemed the name of God, and that she did it again when she heard of the defection of the commandment of Sissons and Soissons. She was hurt and indignant at this, and said, "It is not true. I have never cursed. It is not my custom to swear." A halt was called. It was time. Cauchon was losing ground in the fight, and Joan was gaining it. There were signs that here and there in the court a judge was being softened toward Joan by her courage, her presence of mind, her fortitude, her constancy, her piety, her simplicity and candour, her manifest purity, the nobility of her character, her fine intelligence, and the good brave fight she was making, all friendless and alone, against unfair odds, and there was grave room for fear in this softening process, would spread further and presently bring Cauchon's plans in danger. Something must be done, and it was done. Cauchon was not distinguished for compassion, but he now gave proof that he had it in character. He thought it a pity to subject so many judges to a prostrating fatigues of this trial, when it could be conducted plenty well enough by a handful of them. O gentle judge! But he did not remember to modify the fatigues for the little captive. How would he let all judges be but a handful go? Did he? But he would select the handful himself. Yes, that's what he did. He chose tigers. If a lamb took it in, it was by oversight, not intention, and he knew what to do with lambs when discovered. He called a small council now, and during 5 days they sifted a huge bulk of answers that was gathered from Joan. They winnowed it all in chaff, all useless matter, that is, all matter favourable to Joan. They saved all matter which could be twisted to her hurt, and out of this they constructed a basis for a new trial, which should have the semblance of a continuation of the old one, another change. It was plain that the public trial had wrought damage. Its proceedings had been discussed all over town and had moved many to pity the abused prisoner. There should be no more of that. The sittings should be secret hereafter, and no spectators admitted. So now could come no more. I sent this news to him. I had not the heart to carry it myself. I would give the pain a chance to modify before I should see him in the evening. So what's happened now, guys, is they've removed any judge that they think would possibly take her side because she's telling the truth. They're going to only add judges that hate her already. And they're going to do the case in private, so no one's allowed to watch, so that the public do not realise how honest she is, so they can make the shit up as they go along. On the 10th of March, the secret trial began. A week had passed since I had seen Joan. Her appearance gave me a great shock. She looked tired and weak. She was listless and far away, and her answers showed that she was dazed, not able to keep perfect run of all that was done and said. Another court would not have taken advantage of her state, seeing that her life was at stake, a hero, but would have adjourned and spared her. Did this one? No. It worried her for hours, and with a glad and eager ferocity, making all it could out of the great chance, the first one it had had. She was tortured into confusing herself concerning the sign which had been given the king, and the next day this was continued hour after hour. As a result, she made partial revealments of particulars forbidden by her voices, and seemed to me to state as facts things which were not, allegories and visions mixed with facts. The third day she was brighter. She looked less worn. She was almost her normal self again, and did her work well. Many attempts were made to beguile her into saying indiscreet things, but she saw the purpose in view and answered with tact and wisdom. Did you know if St. Catherine and St. Margaret hate the English? They love whom our Lord loves, and hate whom he hates. Does God hate the English? Of the love or the hatred of God toward the English I know nothing. Then she spoke up with the old martial ring in her voice, and the old audacity in her words, and added, But I know this, that God will send victory to the French, and that all the English will be flung out of France, but the dead ones. Was God on the side of the English when they were prosperous in France? I do not know if God hates the French, but I think that he allowed them to be chastised for their sins. It was a sufficiently naive way to account for a chastisement which had now strung out for 96 years, but nobody found fault with it. There was nobody there who would not punish a sinner 96 years if he could, nor anybody there who would ever dream of such a thing as the Lord's being any shade less stringent than man. Have you ever embraced Saint Marguerite and Saint Catherine? Yes, both of them. The evil face of Cauchon betrayed satisfaction when she said that. When you hung garlands upon l'Ébrefé le Monde, did you do it in honour of your apparitions? No. Satisfaction again. No doubt Cauchon would take it for granted that she hung them out there for the sinful love of fairies. When the saints appeared to you, did you bow? Did you make reverence? Did you kneel? Yes, I did. Then the most honour and reverence that I could. A good point for Cauchon, if he could eventually make it appear that these were no saints to whom I'd done reverence, but devils in disguise. Now, there was the matter of Joan's keeping her supernatural commerce a secret from her parents. Much might be made of that. In fact, particular emphasis had been given to it in private remark, written in the margin of the process. She concealed her visions from her parents and from everyone. Possibly this disloyalty to her parents might itself be a sign of the satanic source of her mission. Do you think it was right to go away to the wars without getting your parents' leave? It is written, one must honour his father and his mother. I have obeyed them in all things but that, and for that I have begged their forgiveness in a letter and gotten it. Ah, you asked their pardon. So you knew you was guilty of sin if going without their leave. Joan was stirred, her eyes flashed, and she exclaimed, I was commanded of God, and it was right to go. If I had had 100 fathers and mothers, and been a king's daughter to boot, I would have gone. Did you never ask your voices if you might tell your parents? They were willing, and I should tell them, but I would not for anything have given my parents that pain. To the minds of the questioners, this headstrong conduct savoured of pride. The sort of pride would move to see sacrilegious adorations. Did not your voices call you daughter of God? Joan answered with simplicity and unsuspiciously, yes, before the siege of Orleans and since. They have several times called me daughter of God. Further indications of pride and vanity was odd. What horse were you riding when you were captured? Who gave it you? The king. You had other things, riches of the king. For myself I had horses and arms, the money to pay the service in my household. Had you not a treasury? Yes, 10 or 12,000 crowns. Then she said with naivety, it was not a great sum to carry on a war with. You have it yet? No, it is the king's money. My brothers hold it for him. What were the arms which you left as an offering in the church of St. Denis? My suit of silver mail and a sword. Did you put them there in order that they might be adored? No, it was but an act of devotion, and it is custom of men of war who have been wounded to make such offering there. I have been wounded before Paris. Nothing appealed to these stormy hearts, those dull imaginations, not even the pretty picture, so simply drawn, of the wounded girl soldier hanging her toy harness there in curious companionship with the grim and dusty iron mail of the historic defenders of France. No, there was nothing in it for them, nothing, unless evil and injury for that innocent creature could be gotten out of it somewhere. Which aided most you, the standard, or the standard you? Whether it was the standard or whether it was I, is nothing. The victories came from God. But did you base your hopes of victory in yourself or in your standard? In neither, in God, and not otherwise. Was not your standard waved around the king's head at the coronation? No, it was not. Why was it that your standard had a place at the crowning of the king in the cathedral of Reims, rather than those of the other captains? Then soft and low came the touching speech, which will live as long as language lives, and pass into all tongues, and move all gentle hearts, wheresoever it shall come, down to the latest day. It had borne the burden. It had earned the honour. How simple it is, and how beautiful, and how it beggars the studies of eloquence of the masters of oratory. Eloquence was a native gift of Joan of Arc. It came from her lips without effort and without preparation. Her words were as sublime as her deeds, as sublime as her character. They had their source in a great heart and were coined in a great brain. So, that's the next part of Joan of Arc, guys. So now what's happened is, like I said, the public trial was going nowhere. They couldn't win. There was no way they were going to win a public trial because, firstly, Joan is telling the truth. Secondly, Joan is not of the devil. Thirdly, she's not a witch. Fourthly, she is doing whatever she needs to do by command of God. So, the problem is now, because they've seen that they cannot get her to lie, they cannot bring out, all the stupid things that they want to make her. They want to twist things and make her say things that are not real. They can't do that. They haven't been able to do that. And while doing it in a public court, she has gained many following because she's not evil and she's not what they say. That is why what they have done is they've only put people in the court now that would condemn her no matter what. They would not give her a chance. They are there to condemn her and only condemn her no matter what she says. And they've made it private. So now, nobody knows what's happening in that courtroom. No one can see what's happening in that courtroom except the people that are obliged to be in that courtroom. And most of those people in that courtroom want her dead just because. See what I mean? Absolutely diabolical and disturbing, but that's what they did. That's exactly what they did to Joan of Arc. So that's the next part. Obviously, do come back to join us for the rest. We are nearing the end, but I don't want to rush it, and just for the sake of getting it over with, I like to do it bit by bit so that we can go over what is actually happening to Joan, because she's still only a child. So it, like I say every time, breaks my heart. Many blessings.